Hi, Year 6. I'm going to read chapter 15 today, which is from the viewpoint of Flint. Flint knelt by his sister and wrapped his arms around her. "It's okay, Blue, it's okay." Pebble crawled out of his hood and licked Blue's cheek. "I've got you now." Blue's bottom lip was trembling. "Snow alive, Flint. It angry. Why the snow angry?" Flint brushed the ice crystals from her furs. "It's gone now, Blue. We're safe. It's all right." And then he turned to face Esker. She was there on the hillside still, just a few meters above them, but this was not the feeble girl he had helped escape Winterfang. This girl was different. Her stance was tough, her red hair was braided with feathers and plaits, and on her shoulder there perched a golden eagle. It was the same one Flint had seen trapped in the snare before Deep Roots. He could see the scar on its left talon, but what on earth was it doing with Esker? And how had she survived in the wild for so long? He scooped up Pebble and stumbled to his feet, but, on seeing Esker, Blue pushed past him. "Esker," she cried, clapping her hands. "My friend, I miss you." Balapin launched herself into the sky, unsure what to make of the bundle of fur charging towards her. But Blue wasn't fazed. She flung her arms around Esker and squeezed her tight. Esker blushed. "Hello, Blue." The little girl drew back. "Flint looking for you in the forest." Flint picked up a clump of ice from Pebble's fur. "Quiet, Blue." She scrunched up her nose. "Flint looking for you, Esker. At night when Tompkin's sleeping, and today on hunt. Always looking with his magic glass." Flint was suddenly glad that his magnifying glass was tucked away in his rucksack and not out in his palm searching for Esker's tracks, as it had only been a few hours before. "We came out to the foothills to hint Ptamargan, actually. The Tusk Guards are patrolling the forest now, and we can't access our usual hunting spots." Blue smiled. "We came to find you, Esker, don't forget." Flint forget. Flint scowled at his sister. "We strayed a little further than previous hunts this morning, too. Find the best. But we didn't expect to stumble into the Ice Queen's enchantments." He looked around the valley. "So, you found another tribe to take you in?" Esker glanced at Balapin, wheeling above them. The bird was wary of its visitors, but she could tell that these ones meant no harm. "Yes?" Flint frowned. "The Feather tribe, in the Nevercliffs?" "No." Esker picked up her quiver and slung it over her shoulder. "It's just me and Balapin," the eagle cried above them, carving its circles into the bright blue sky. Flint shook his head. "You survived out here in the wild, without a tribe." "I've got a tribe," Esker replied. "It's just not very big yet." "But who taught you to hunt? How did you find shelter?" Esker shrugged. "Balapin." Then she added, "The golden eagle." "But," Flint's words trailed away. "She showed me the hideaway, then she taught me to hunt," Esker explained. "Fish first, down by the river, then hares up in the burrows on the ridges. Ptarmigan too. Once I'd bent the carabao antler into a bow, strung it with snow, and fletched my arrows." The words spilt out, toppling over each other in their strangely magnetic way as Esker negotiated her first proper conversation since leaving Deep Roots. And all the while Flint listened, his jaw open. "We get along pretty well, Balapin and me, so as long as I remember to wash up my dishes after hunts. But I suppose washing up is to be expected in tribes. It's not exactly fun though, is it?" She paused. "Sorry, I forgot you don't do much talking." Flint was too shocked to speak, but Blue simply rolled her eyes. "Keep up, Flint. Esker good hunter," she grinned. Let's eat Esker food." There was a growl of approval from Flint's arms. "Pebble hungry too." And Flint was surprised to see that Esker didn't flinch at Blue's demands, or even seem to hold a grudge about what the fur tribe had done to her when she'd asked to be welcomed in. She simply handed Blue the necklace she'd found in the snow and nodded towards the river. This was the way to the hideaway," she said. Flint was quiet as she walked, and while Blue chattered away to Esker, he glanced up at the eagle soaring over the valley. It didn't seem to be following them exactly, but he could tell that it was watching their every move. Flint knew about the bonds between animals and tribes during hunts. He'd learnt all about that from his pa, but no one had ever spoken of an animal teaching a person the ways of the wild. And yet, somehow Balapin had helped to keep the girl alive against all of the odds. He walked on in silence, but when Esker led them behind the waterfall to the wooden door built into the rock, Flint couldn't hide his astonishment. You found Giant's beard," he stammered. "The waterfall that freezes all through the winter and hides Erkenvold's most secret food store." Esker pulled the door open. "Well, technically Balapin found it." The eagle settled into his nest on the ledge outside, and Blue had patted Esker's back. "That's amazing, Esker." Flint stepped inside and his eyes travelled over the bed, table and chairs and the little piece of the wild Esker had collected. Red quartz from the riverbed on the windowsill, pines and needles scattered over the floor, and snowy owl feathers twisted round in the base of a lamp. "It really is," Flint murmured as he closed the door, and then he realised what he'd said and reached for some new words. Snargoyles, that's what we ran into in the back of the hill. Esker lit the stove while the others took a seat. Snargoyles? So that's what happens when the Ice Queen calls the hills to obey her. Flint nodded. Snow hex by dark magic does strange things. Lofty said he saw snow goyles in the valley shortly after the battle last year, and none of us came back after that. He paused. Until we decided to hunt here today, of course. Without bows and arrows, Esker said, avoiding his eyes. Flint shifted in his seat. He couldn't help feeling he was losing control of the conversation, something that often seemed to happen with Esker. He sank into silence as Esker reached for the plucked ptarmigan. She threw one, still raw, to Pebble, who squealed with delight, and then she knelt by the fire as the meat cooked. The silence dragged on and Flint's eyes widened as Esker plated up the meat and handed it to the food around. Thank you, he said, after a while, for everyone who helped out with the Snargoyles. I don't know what would have happened if you and Balopin hadn't showed up. Just keeping a promise, Esker said quietly. Flint thought to her words on his sled. One day I'll repay you for rescuing me. They were the words that he had scoffed at, and yet Esker had kept to them, because of her courage and her loyalty, and his sister was still alive. And on realising that, something inside Flint thawed. What does thawed mean? If something thaws. What does that mean? Something thaws. Ice can thaw. Snow can thaw. Yep. No, not fall. Not form. Something thaws. It means to like disappear, basically. Oh, yeah. Okay. This was a girl he and his tribe had vastly misjudged. He took a deep breath. I think maybe I was wrong about you, Esker. Esker smiled. Then a wide smile reached her ears, and Flint found himself wondering whether birthplace, parentage and appearance were really the things that you should list people under. Somehow courage and loyalty seemed like better markers. Esker launched into all that had happened since leaving the labyrinth, being chased on the foothills by the Ice Queen's sleigh, Balopin saving her, and the Queen's plans to curse Erkenvold and wipe out the Fur and Feather tribes, and the mysterious mention of the Skysong. Flint tried to imagine his beloved forest cursed by the Ice Queen's power, trees rotted through, links hexed to obey her, the labyrinth destroyed and his whole tribe gone. His heart trembled at the thought. After a while, Blue got up to play with Pebble, but Flint and Esker kept talking through the day, and though he said nothing, Flint couldn't help noticing the change in Esker's voice. Her body was sturdier. Even the way she moved was more decisive, but her voice, although still strangely captivating, was undoubtedly weaker. Once or twice she tried to clear her throat, as she could tell there was something wrong and embarrassed by that fact, but it didn't sound like a tickle or a cough to Flint. Esker leant back in her chair and sighed. I still don't know who I am, or why my voice is important, or what this Skysong is, or even how I'm going to stay hidden from the Ice Queen. I don't think people stop evil by staying hidden, Flint looked through the window at the afternoon shadows cast by the rowan trees. I think they stop it by standing out. Esker pulled her hair back from her face and wound it into a plait. But the midnight sun rises in 5 days. How? Flint gasped and Esker spun around. What? Am I doing the conversation wrong again? Look back at the window for a second, Flint murmured. Then he leant forward and peered at her neck. You have a birthmark just below your hairline. Oh, Esker replied. Is that good or bad? Flint grinned. It's big, the size of my fist, and the pattern is so clear I could have drawn it on. It's the little bear, the constellation of the sky gods. Esker's face paled. The Ice Queen told me that I bore the mark of the gods, that it was proof that I was cursed. I didn't know that's what she meant, until now. Flint shook his head. You're not cursed, Esker. How do you know? I've got the mark to prove it. Flint shook his head. Because since we've met, you've got me thinking. 2 whole armies of warriors weren't enough to defeat the Ice Queen last summer, and Tompkin's rebellion will be no different. No matter how many extra training sessions he organises. He paused. I know that Erkenvold's magic can be used for good. His face reddened, and the world's secret kept for so long. I think your birthmark is a sign that your the voice is the key to defeating the Ice Queen. As the mention of her voice, Esker winced, and Flint couldn't help feeling that she was holding a secret back. She grabbed her spear. Raise your knife too, so that I've got a mirror behind me. I want to see the birthmark. Flint did as she asked, and as Esker looked at the constellation stamped on her skin, she swallowed. I was planning to leave for Nevercliffs today to seek out the Feather Tribe, but them Snargoyles attacked. She gripped her spear. It's too late to go on now, but I need to set off at first light tomorrow, because timing's running out. The Feather Tribe might know something about my past or the Skysong, and to defeat the Ice Queen I'm going to need more than I do now. Flint nodded, then he was silent for a few minutes. He knew he should be getting back to Tompkin. This was exactly the sort of detour his brother was always warning him about. But Flint's gut was telling him to go on with Esker. He thought of his ma trapped in Winterfang, and Erkenwald emptied of the fur and the feather tribes, and its rivers and mountains and oceans cursed by the Ice Queen. What if, by journeying to the Nevercliffs with Esgar, he could prevent all of that? What if he could stage a rescue mission that would not only work for his ma, but for all the other prisoners too? A mission that would make Tompkin proud of him once again. But there was Blue, currently dangling tidbits of food before Pebble, who jumped up and gobbled them down. He couldn't leave her here. She didn't have the coordination to hunt on her own or the strength to spend the nights in the wilderness with no one by her side. But he couldn't tell her to go back to Deep Roots. She wouldn't find her way without his help, and going back to the labyrinth with her would mean risking the Tusk Guards and Tompkin's rules. But to come with him, if he went on with Esgar, she wouldn't keep up with it in the Nevercliffs. She wouldn't be able to cope with the dangers around them. "I want to come with you, Esgar," Flint said quietly, and Esgar nodded as if perhaps she could read him a little better than he thought. "But Blue," Flint whispered, "she'd be slower than us, and she wouldn't understand things." Esgar watched Blue rolling on the bed with Pebble. "We'll look after her," she said. "You, me, and Balapin." Flint bit his lip. "It's a big thing looking after her, bigger than you think." Esgar nodded. "I know, but that's what tribes do." Flint was taken aback by her words, but not many people had the patience for Blue, and fewer still the understanding. But somehow Esgar, an outsider he knew next to nothing about, seemed to have both, and her acceptance stirred something deep inside Flint's heart. Esgar looked around the hideaway. "We'll leave at first light. After—" Blue hurried to the window. "Something there," she said, frowning. "Something in the trees." Esgar looked over Blue's shoulder. "Balapin's still in her nest, Blue. It's okay. She'd let us know if there was anything to worry about." Blue shook her head. "Something there, I saw it. Big shape." Flint drew Blue back to the table. "Come on, Blue. It was probably just—" A shiver rippled through Flint because there was footsteps crunching through the snow outside, accompanied by a low, husky breathing. Someone or something was approaching Giant's beard. Esgar grabbed her spear with one hand and Blue with the other, and Flint edged towards the silent feet before lowering his eye to a small crack in the door. His stomach tilted. White fur, an eye as black as coal. "Erkenwald," he whispered, his voice laced with dread. Okay, so that chapter there, Flint's kind of accepted now Esgar is what went wrong, and he's kind of friends with her again, and he's going to go on to that journey with her. So chapter 16 is from Esgar's viewpoint, which will be up later today. Say bye, everyone.
Bye.